Glasgow, Scotland, is one of the most haunted cities in all of Great Britain. And today we're going to take you on a tour of some of its most haunted places. Bury the man responsible for Peter Pan. When Knox stayed at the parsonage in the 16th century, he made it his mission to convert the people of Glasgow to Presbyterianism. He would often drag people out of their beds at night and force them to attend religious services. Originally, it served as a hospital for pilgrims on their way to the Cathedral of Glasgow. One of the most infamous was a man named Black Betty, whose real name was Elizabeth Inch. She ran a tight ship, smuggling everything from tobacco to brandy and even slaves. She is said to appear in the cemetery's main gate and then evaporate into thin air. There have been sightings of spiders and rats scampering around the cemetery, but there's nothing more terrifying than the cemetery's resident vampire bat. This large brown bat is said to swoop down on unsuspecting visitors and drain them of their life essence. Now, while vampire bats do exist in South America, they are very rare in Great Britain. So this must be a supernatural creature indeed. He is said to interact with the living, sometimes even speaking to people, or even touching them. But don't be too surprised if he gives you a cold shoulder. That's because John is a very lonely ghost, and he doesn't want to scare you away. So if you ever visit the cemetery and see a handsome stranger approaching you, don't be afraid to say hello. You never know. You might make a new friend for life, or at least until sunset. Imagine being stalked through the cemetery by a tiny winged demon that sucks your life away. It would definitely make you run for the hills. It's a fascinating place to explore, but it's also important to be respectful of the dead. After all, you are visiting a cemetery. But if you follow these simple rules, you should be fine. Just don't go wandering around after dark because you never know what you might encounter. And please, for the love of all that is holy, stay away from the Angel of the North Monument. It's cursed, and the last thing you want is to mess with a heartbroken little girl. Some believe she is the ghost of a young girl who died of the plague in the 1800s. Over 100 people from Glasgow died when the ship sank on its maiden voyage in 1911, and their bodies were brought back to the city for burial. Many of the victims were children, and their parents erected the Angel of the North Monument to honor their memory. But it's rumored that the monument is also haunted by the ghost of a young girl who died on the Titanic. Visitors have reported hearing the sound of a music box playing softly, even though there are no working music boxes in the area. Some have even seen the ghost of the girl herself, walking along the path or sitting on one of the benches. Others say she is the daughter of one of the cemetery's founders, who died in a tragic accident. John was a wealthy merchant who died in 1825, and his family erected an elaborate tomb in his honor. The tomb is made of white marble and stands over 20 feet tall. But the most impressive part is the statue of John himself, which is carved in such detail that it looks almost lifelike. But when the sun sets and the shadows grow long, the statue comes to life. That's right.
Ow.
Visitors have reported seeing the ghost of John Catholic walking out of his tomb at night. He is said to wander around the cemetery looking for his lost love, Mary. Mary died before John, and he never recovered from the heartbreak. Some say he is still searching for her, wandering the cemetery for eternity. Her crew was so efficient that they could unload a ship in record time and avoid detection. But eventually Betty was caught and sentenced to death by hanging. Her head was cut off and hung from the nearest lamppost as a warning to other would-be smugglers. But her ghost is said to haunt the docks to this day, warning sailors of the dangers of smuggling or perhaps looking for her lost head. But after a few hundred years, it was converted to a tavern. But now we're going to explore one of the most haunted places in the entire city, the Southern Necropolis. Established in 1831, it was meant to be a final resting place for the citizens of Glasgow. But over the years, it has become a hub for paranormal activity. As soon as the cemetery opened, people began reporting strange occurrences, such as disembodied footsteps, voices, and even apparitions. One of the most famous ghosts is that of a woman in white, who is said to wander the cemetery at night. Visitors have described her as a young woman wearing a white dress and a bonnet. She is always seen walking slowly and aimlessly, never speaking a word. No one knows who she is or why she's haunting the cemetery. But many believe she's searching for the body of her loved one who died and was buried here. Others say she is the ghost of Margaret MacDonald, who was executed in 1828 for killing her illegitimate child. Whatever the case, her ghost is a popular sight among those who dare to visit the cemetery at night. In 1837, when the tavern was demolished, several bodies were discovered beneath the floorboards. They were later identified as the remains of 6 men who had died during an outbreak of the plague in 1645. Their bodies were exhumed and moved to a mass grave in the nearby Parton Cemetery. But it's rumored that their ghosts still haunt the area, especially a young boy who is said to wander the streets at night searching for his mother. But his efforts were in vain as the citizens of Glasgow remained Catholic. Eventually, Knox left the city in disgust and died aboard a ship bound for France. Some say his ghost still haunts the halls of the old parsonage, dragging poor sleepers from their beds. To this day, guests have reported being awoken in the middle of the night with no logical explanation. The ghost of John Knox might just be taking his revenge on anyone who dares sleep in his old room. Make sure to stay till the end to hear about the ghost that will literally suck the life out of you. Our first stop is at the old parsonage, which dates back to 1774. It was once home to 2 of Scotland's most famous writers, John Knox and J.M. As we walk through Glasgow, you can't help but notice the Victorian architecture everywhere around you. And if you look closely, you'll see that there are angels carved into the tops of many of these buildings. But there's a dark secret behind these stone monoliths. The angel statues were actually inspired by the work of a sculptor named John Flaxman, who produced highly detailed statues of angelic beings. But the creepiest part is that Flaxman got the idea for these statues from mummies he saw at an Egyptian exhibition. He was so obsessed with death and the afterlife that he began experimenting with embalming human corpses and even designed his own coffin, which is now known as the sarcophagus. So the next time you see an angel's statue, remember that it may not be as heavenly as it seems. Now let's move on to the west end of Glasgow, where we'll find the Auld House, one of the city's oldest buildings dating back to 1532. In the 19th century, Glasgow was one of the busiest ports in Great Britain, but this also made it a hub for smugglers and bootleggers. So far, we've heard about various ghosts that haunt specific buildings in Glasgow. Another well-known apparition is that of a little girl in a Victorian nightgown. And let's not forget about the creepy crawlies that call this place home. Glasgow Necropolis is also home to the Angel of the North Monument, a towering structure that was built to commemorate the victims of the sinking of the Titanic. But if you want to see the most impressive ghost in the cemetery, you need to visit the tomb of John Catholic. But the scariest part is that the ghost of John Catholic is not content with just walking around the cemetery. As you can see, the Southern Necropolis is full of history, mystery, and maybe even a few ghosts.